On the cutting board today we have a VHS-C camcorder from 1987 that was marketed by Sylvania. Sylvania didn't actually manufacture this camera, but I have a hunch that it may be a JVC. I looked at a couple of JVCs from the time period, and it shared a few of the same characteristics. For example, the front control panel and the LCD readout for the tape position. This is a very inexpensive camcorder for its time period. Sylvania wasn't really the go-to brand for high-tech gadgets. They were more of a familiar brand that many people were well aware of. Sylvania was big in the light bulb and television business. They made a lot of televisions, mainly because they made their own tubes. So I believe they were actually a complete manufacturer at one point. But when it came time for the high-tech gadgets of the 1980s, like these camcorders, Sylvania would have contracted them out to another company. In this case, they went to a company called NAP Consumer Electronics, who would have gone to any one of a dozen Japanese manufacturers to produce a particular product at a certain price point, which is probably why this camera lacks some of the basic features. For example, fade in or fade out, date and time on screen, a couple of other features that would have been quite prevalent back in the day. It also works very poorly in low light conditions, which tells me that it has a very low quality image sensor. This is not a tube camera. I believe it is a CCD camera, as it states on the top there, but a very early, very low quality one at that. Further examples of cheapness include a lack of rubber padding on the hand surface, the hand-holding surface. It's just grooved plastic. It really isn't a nice camera by any stretch of the imagination, but it would have been something that a family would have purchased, probably saved up for several months or so. Even a cheap camera like this would have retailed for around $1,000 in 1987. So it was still a very expensive purchase. So for the go-go family of the 1980s, owning a camera like this would have been a privilege rather than an expectation. When my family bought their first camera in 1997, it was a JVC VHS-C camera, very compact in comparison to this one and laden with features. I think the only thing our camera did not have was a recording light. There was a dummy plate for it, but it didn't have one. That camera lasted, hell, if I could find it, I bet you it still works. We never used it because it was so expensive, so me and my sister and my mother were afraid to touch it. Well, I wasn't afraid to, but I knew that if something happened to it, it would cost me my life. But I believe even that camera cost my family about $700 in 1997. I know it's still floating around their house somewhere, but no one's been able to find it. But I assure you my father has relinquished his iron grip on that very expensive piece of equipment. As a matter of fact, most of our tapes were lost except for a handful of them, and even those have garbage footage from my sister's school plays and stuff, so it's like, alright, I guess that was a wasted investment. It didn't get used enough to justify the cost, and it cost so much, so we didn't use it because of its cost. It was kind of a waste of resources, but nevertheless. I have fully tested this camera, and to my surprise, it still works. And let me explain why I'm shocked. All of the rubber belts and idlers and other various bits and pieces would have theoretically degraded and fallen apart many years ago, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Even the microphone wind guard is still intact, and it's not even mushy. A lot of times, this particular foam material turns into like a mush, and it gets sticky, and it gets on your fingers, and it's gross. But that didn't happen here. Interesting. Now, right now, I have it on the battery, which isn't fully charged. I think I charged it for half an hour, so I don't expect a miracle here. But let's turn it on. First thing you notice is the control buttons or the transport buttons light up based on whatever current selection is selected. But this really does look like a JVC. The more I look at it, I had a very similar camcorder from the same time period that was a JVC that I never got to use because one of the gears broke. I have what looks like a low battery indicator, so we'll take that for what it's worth. I'm going to let this thing charge before I do my first video shoot with it. Let's just shut it down because that, I believe, indicates a low battery. Oh, wait a minute. No, that means the ACT is set to something other than... Oh, the red light went away. What do you know? Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to shoot a quick clip with it, and I'm going to play it back on my television using a VHS-C adapter. So now we're going to put the VHS-C tape into the VHS adapter. Now this is a less expensive version. The better ones, like the one I had when we grew up, was automatic. It was fully electrically operated. You just pop the tape in and it pulls it in. We're just going to drop the tape into the cavity here. It's kind of tricky. There it goes. And you just slowly close the door. And it draws the tape out of the cartridge into a normal full-sized VHS position. There we go. This is I think this is like a $7 eBay special. Okay, that didn't quite... The first thing you guys are going to notice how dark the picture is in this camera. Because of its, well, infinite cheapness and low quality, it requires a lot of ambient light to be able to function in a way that makes sense. Nevertheless, it does work. I have tested it already, and I'm amazed at how good the picture quality is, given its age. There is no battery indicator on the screen, but it would not allow me to enter record mode. Now we're going to play back the tape we just did in the daylight outdoors. What really sucks though is this camera really has no indications on its screen as to battery level or tape position. I'm just going to dub over this. So basically, I found that, of course, the viewfinder doesn't really show you anything on camera status, battery level, tape position, you know, anything like that. Even in zoom position, it doesn't even show that. So it's kind of, it's pretty Spartan as to what it shows. It does say recording, and it does have a little, like a bouncing dot that shows that the tape is moving, but that's all it does. I find that the color is a bit weak, but that's also due to the snow on the ground, which washes everything out. But indoors, you can clearly see that it does have some color depth to it, but not very much. I mean, it kind of struggles on reds, and I mean, like that tea kettle is bright red, first of all. But it shows the hamburger pretty well. So it shows yellows and blues, but reds, it's kind of weak. Of course, the VW bus is bright red, and it's in bright light. But other than that, I mean, it works pretty well for a low-cost 25-year-old camera. I mean, it's actually, yeah, about 25, 26 years old now, so that's not terrible. And the good thing about cameras like that is if someone decided to resurrect VHS, you can still use one of these Dazzle converter boxes or video capture devices, and you can record it onto modern equipment pretty straightforward. Of course, you wouldn't gain anything in the resolution or color depth front, but you can still do it. So in a pinch, if all I had was a VHS camcorder and a video capture device, I could do all my YouTube videos with that camera. Honestly, I could do it. I would have to reconfigure some stuff, but I could make it work. And that's what makes it cool, because unlike, of course, 8mm or Super 8 film, which is a little more difficult to convert, it has to be done. Anyway, so, ooh, careful. Now, when working with these tapes, see, this is what happened. Because of that stupid thing, I didn't retension the tape when I took it out. You have to do that every time you pull it out. I didn't retension the tape, and it got all munched up in the camera. But as long as the tape is tight, it'll work. This tape is now junk. I would never reuse this. I have a bunch of other ones over there I could use. But I'm not really going to use the camera anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, that's it. You know, let's continue on with our video, and then we'll be on to something. Alright, I've just recorded some footage. Of course, you just saw that. But notice what I mean about how dark it is. Even though I have all these lights going, and they're blazing at their brightest, it just isn't enough for this old camera to really capture. Look at the size of this power brick. Is that not the biggest one you've ever seen? That's what she said. But anyway, there you have it. The Sylvania, possibly JVC camcorder. But there is no indication of who made it, really. I mean, I don't see anything in the door here. It looks like the JVC mechanism that was in my old camera, but the one that I broke. I didn't tell you about that one, did I? Well, I broke a camera by accident, found it in the trash, put a tape in it. The thing worked. I had to take it apart for some reason, and I sheared off a gear. Yeah, that was not my proudest moment, but this thing is so clean. It is absolutely brilliantly clean. So, still don't know who made it, though. Not definitively. But I'm sure one of you guys can confirm or deny, or yeah, I hopefully confirm my suspicions that it's actually a JVC. Not that it matters, but it would be nice to know, because I would like to get this battery rebuilt, if possible.